I am Daniel, 35, a software engineer living in a bustling metropolitan city known for its thriving tech industry and vibrant nightlife. Every day I navigate the fast-paced rhythm of the city, where skyscrapers pierce the sky and neon lights illuminate the streets. The city never sleeps, and neither do I, it seems. Work consumes much of my time, but I always make an effort to return to our modern apartment, a haven of tranquility amidst the chaos. I've been married to Sophie for 12 years. She's 33, with a smile that once brightened my darkest days and eyes that used to twinkle with mischief and love. We met in college, where our shared dreams and ambitions intertwined, leading us to this life we built together. Sophie works in marketing for a major firm, a job that demands a lot, but also rewards her creativity and drive. Our daughter, Ava, is 10 years old, full of energy and curiosity. She's the light of my life, her laughter echoing through our apartment like a sweet melody. We spend our weekends exploring the city's parks, visiting museums, and indulging in the occasional ice cream treat. It's a seemingly perfect life, filled with love and shared moments. Our apartment reflects our personalities and our life together. It's modern and sleek, with large windows that offer stunning views of the cityscape. We chose this place because it felt like a fresh start, a space where we could grow our family and chase our dreams. Each room is a blend of both our tastes: Sophie's love for minimalist decor and my penchant for tech gadgets. Ava's room is a burst of color and creativity, filled with her drawings and books. Sophie's job often requires her to attend late-night meetings and work events. In the beginning, it didn't bother me much. I trusted her completely. We had an open line of communication and shared our daily experiences with each other. But lately, something has changed. Sophie seems distant, preoccupied with her phone, and often lost in thought. Her laughter doesn't sound the same, and her smiles never quite reach her eyes. It's been months since we last had a meaningful conversation. Our interactions have become more routine and less intimate. I catch her sneaking glances at her phone during dinner, her fingers dancing over the screen with a familiarity that stirs an unease in me. She dismisses my questions with vague answers about work, and I find myself wondering if there's more to it than she's letting on. Despite my growing unease, I try to brush off my suspicions. I tell myself it's just work stress or maybe a phase. But as the weeks turn into months, the feeling gnaws at me, a constant presence that I can't shake. I start to notice the small things: the way she quickly hides her phone when I enter the room, the late-night texts, and the secretive phone calls. It's as if a wall has been built between us, and I can't find a way to break it down. Ava senses the tension too. She's perceptive for her age, and her questions about why Mommy is always busy, or why we don't spend as much time together anymore, cut deep. I reassure her as best as I can, but the truth is, I don't have any answers. The life we've built seems to be unraveling at the seams, and I'm powerless to stop it. Our once lively apartment now feels cold and distant. The laughter that used to fill the rooms is replaced by an uncomfortable silence. I find solace in my work, burying myself in projects and deadlines to distract from the growing void in my personal life. But no matter how hard I try, the sense of dread follows me, a shadow that I can't escape. In moments of quiet reflection, I wonder where we went wrong. Was it my long hours at work? Did I miss the signs? I replay our life together in my mind, searching for clues, for anything that could explain the growing distance between us. But all I find are memories of happier times, and the contrast to our current reality is stark and painful. Sophie and I have always been a team, facing life's challenges together. We've weathered storms and celebrated victories, always with the belief that our love was unbreakable. But now, as I stand on the precipice of uncertainty, that belief is shaken. The foundation of trust and mutual respect that we've built our relationship on feels like it's crumbling, and I'm left grappling with the fear of what lies ahead. The bustling city outside our windows goes on, indifferent to the turmoil in my heart. The streets are alive with people chasing their dreams, unaware of the battles being fought behind closed doors. I wonder if anyone else feels the same way, if they're struggling with the same doubts and fears. It's a lonely thought, but it brings a strange sense of comfort, knowing I'm not entirely alone in my struggles. As I navigate this uncertain terrain, I hold on to the hope that we can find our way back to each other, that the distance between us is just a phase, a rough patch that we'll overcome. But deep down, a nagging voice whispers that things might never be the same again, and that thought, more than anything else, fills me with a profound sense of sadness and loss. As the months rolled on, Sophie's distance became impossible to ignore. It started with the late-night meetings. At first, they were occasional, justified by her demanding job in marketing, but soon, they became a regular occurrence. Every other evening, she'd come home late, tired and distracted. Our conversations, once lively and filled with shared dreams and laughter, dwindled into mere exchanges of mundane details about our day. The spark that once ignited our relationship seemed to be fading. Sophie began spending more time on her phone. It was always in her hand, her eyes glued to the screen. I couldn't help but notice the way she'd smile at her phone, a secretive smile that she rarely directed at me anymore. When I'd ask who she was texting, she'd brush it off with a casual just work stuff or catching up with friends. I wanted to believe her, but the unease in my gut kept growing. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, Sophie received a message. Her phone buzzed on the counter, and I saw her glance at it with a quick, almost guilty look. She picked it up, read the message, and immediately started typing back, her fingers moving rapidly over the screen. I tried to engage her in conversation, asking about her day, but she seemed distracted, only half listening to me. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light and nonchalant. "Yeah, everything's fine," she replied, not looking up from her phone. "You've been really busy lately," I ventured, hoping to draw her into a deeper conversation. "It's just work," she said, finally meeting my eyes with a forced smile. "Things are a bit hectic right now." I nodded, not wanting to push her further, but the knot in my stomach tightened. As the days went by, I noticed more changes. Sophie started dressing up more for these meetings. Clothes I hadn't seen her wear in a long time. Makeup that she usually reserved for special occasions. She'd spend extra time getting ready, and the scent of her favorite perfume would linger in the apartment long after she'd left. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The trust that had been the cornerstone of our relationship was eroding, replaced by suspicion and doubt. I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting, that it was just the stress of her job, but every time I saw her smile at her phone or noticed her hurriedly hide a message, my heart sank a little more. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, I decided to confront her. I needed answers, and the uncertainty was driving me insane. "Sophie," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Is there something you're not telling me?" She looked up from her phone, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," I said, struggling to find the right words. "You've been so distant lately, always on your phone, always out late. It feels like you're hiding something from me." Her eyes flashed with irritation. "I told you it's just work. Why can't you believe me?" "I'm trying to," I replied, feeling my frustration rise. "But it's hard when you won't talk to me about it." She sighed, putting her phone down and rubbing her temples. "Daniel, I'm really tired. Can we not do this right now?" I wanted to press her, to demand the truth, but the exhaustion in her eyes made me hesitate. "Okay," I said softly, "but we need to talk about this. I can't keep feeling like this." She nodded, but her expression didn't change. As she turned off the light and settled into bed, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with questions and fears. The next morning, Sophie left early for another meeting, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I made breakfast for Ava, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation bearing down on me. Ava noticed the tension too, her usually bright demeanor subdued. "Daddy, is everything okay with Mommy?" she asked, her big eyes filled with concern. I forced a smile, trying to reassure her. "Mommy's just busy with work, sweetheart. Everything will be okay." But even as I said the words, I wasn't sure if I believed them. The days continued in the same pattern. Sophie growing more distant, me feeling more isolated and confused. I started paying closer attention to her actions, looking for any clues that might explain her behavior. One evening while Sophie was in the shower, I noticed her phone on the bed. It buzzed with a new message, and I couldn't resist the urge to look. My heart pounded as I picked it up, glancing at the screen. The message was from someone named Jason, a name I hadn't heard her mention before. The text was brief, but it sent a chill down my spine. "Can't wait to see you tonight." I quickly put the phone back where I'd found it, my mind reeling. Who was Jason, and why was Sophie meeting him? The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but I knew I needed more information before confronting her. Determined to find out the truth, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I installed a phone tracker app on her device, something I never thought I'd do. It felt invasive, wrong even, but I was desperate for answers. Each day I'd check her location, my heart sinking every time she ended up at places that had nothing to do with work. My worst fears were slowly being confirmed. The late-night meetings, the secretive texts, the distant behavior. It all pointed to something I wasn't ready to face. But the evidence was mounting, and I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. The time for confrontation was approaching, and I needed to be prepared for whatever I might uncover. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to take a more proactive approach. One weekend, while Sophie was out, I planned a surprise dinner. I set the table with her favorite dishes, lit candles, and even bought a bottle of her preferred wine. I wanted to remind her of the life we'd built together and show her that I still cared deeply for our relationship. As the hours ticked by, anticipation and anxiety gnawed at me. 7 o'clock came and went, then 8. By 9, worry turned into suspicion. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Desperation set in, and I checked the phone tracker app. Her location showed a popular downtown Café, a place she never mentioned visiting. My heart pounded as I grabbed my coat and keys, heading out the door. The Café was bustling with life when I arrived, filled with people enjoying their Saturday night. I scanned the crowd, my eyes landing on Sophie. She was sitting in a corner booth, her back to me, and across from her was Jason, the man from the text message. They were deep in conversation, their heads close together. Laughter floated across the room, a sound that felt like a betrayal. I took a seat at a nearby table, careful to stay out of their line of sight. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and snapped a few discreet photos. They were laughing and talking with an intimacy that cut deep. Jason reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair from Sophie's face, and she smiled at him in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. My mind raced, a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and confusion. Part of me wanted to storm over and confront them right then and there, but I held back. I needed more than just a confrontation in a public place. I needed concrete proof and a clear head to deal with the fallout that would surely follow. I watched as they paid the bill and stood to leave. My heart ached with every step they took towards the exit, but I knew I had to follow them. Keeping a safe distance, I trailed them through the bustling streets. They walked leisurely, as if they had all the time in the world. Jason held Sophie's hand, and they strolled towards a nearby hotel. The sight of the hotel sign filled me with dread. I stopped in my tracks, watching as they entered the lobby, hand in hand. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my mind screaming at me to turn away, to leave. But I couldn't. I had to see this through, no matter how much it hurt. I entered the hotel lobby, trying to keep my composure. The bright lights and polished floors felt surreal, as if I was in a dream. A nightmare. I watched them approach the front desk, where Jason checked in. The receptionist handed him a keycard, and they headed towards the elevator. My legs felt like lead as I approached the front desk. I tried to keep my voice steady as I spoke. "Excuse me, I'm supposed to meet a friend, Jason, who just checked in. Can you tell me which room he's in?" The receptionist eyed me suspiciously, but checked the computer. "Room 312, she said, handing me a spare keycard. "But please be discreet." I nodded, muttering my thanks, and headed towards the elevator. My heart pounded louder with each step, the echo of my footsteps matching the rhythm of my dread. The ride up to the third floor felt interminable. When the doors finally opened, I stepped out into the dimly lit hallway, the air thick with tension. Room 312 was halfway down the hall. I could hear muffled voices and laughter as I approached. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the keycard reader. Part of me wanted to turn back, to pretend I hadn't seen any of this. But I couldn't live with the uncertainty any longer. I swiped the keycard, the door clicked open, and I pushed it ajar. The sight that greeted me shattered my heart. Sophie and Jason were in an intimate embrace, their faces inches apart. They looked up, startled, as I burst into the room. The shock and guilt on Sophie's face confirmed my worst fears. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, my voice trembling with rage and heartbreak. Sophie scrambled to cover herself, her eyes wide with panic. "Daniel, I can explain," she stammered. Jason stood there, looking guilty and uncomfortable. "This isn't what it looks like," he tried to say, but his words fell flat. "It's exactly what it looks like," I shot back, my voice rising. "How long has this been going on? How long have you been lying to me?" Sophie started to cry, her tears falling fast. "It just happened, Daniel. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Didn't mean for it to go this far?" I echoed, my voice dripping with bitterness. "You've been lying to me for months, sneaking around, and this is what you call not going too far?" She sobbed, trying to reach out to me, but I stepped back. "Don't!" I warned, my voice breaking. "I don't want to hear any more excuses. Our marriage is over, Sophie. It's over." With that, I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her cries behind me. The ride down the elevator was a blur, my mind numb with pain and disbelief. The city lights outside felt harsh and unforgiving as I stepped out onto the street, each one a reminder of the life that was crumbling around me. I wandered aimlessly, my thoughts a chaotic mess. How had it come to this? The woman I loved, the life we had built together, all torn apart in an instant. I felt like a ghost, moving through the city without purpose, my heart shattered into pieces. Eventually, I found myself back at our apartment. The candles had burned down, the dinner cold and untouched on the table. The sight was a cruel reminder of my earlier hopes, now dashed. I slumped into a chair, the weight of the night's revelations pressing down on me. As I sat there, alone in the darkness, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The life I thought I knew had been built on lies, and the path ahead was uncertain and fraught with pain. But one thing was clear. I couldn't stay in this place of betrayal and heartbreak. I had to move forward, for my sake and for Ava's. In the days following the confrontation at the hotel, I felt like I was living in a fog. The betrayal had cut deep, leaving me in a state of emotional numbness. Sophie called and texted constantly, begging for a chance to explain, to make things right, but I couldn't bear to listen. I needed clarity, not more excuses. I decided to contact a divorce lawyer, determined to end this chapter of my life. The lawyer I chose was highly recommended and known for being thorough and empathetic. Sitting in his office, I laid out the evidence I had gathered. The photos, the texts, the tracker logs. He listened patiently, his expression somber but professional. "Daniel," he said after reviewing everything, "you have a strong case. Given the evidence of infidelity, we can proceed with filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. This will help protect your assets and ensure a fair settlement." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. The finality of his words made everything more real. We discussed the necessary steps and paperwork, and I left his office with a sense of resolve. I had to protect myself and Ava to ensure we had a stable future. That evening, I sat Ava down and tried to explain in the simplest terms what was happening. "Sweetheart, Mommy and Daddy are going through some tough times right now. We both love you very much, but things are going to change." Her eyes filled with tears, and she hugged me tightly. "Daddy, why can't we all be together? Why is Mommy always sad?" I held her close, my heart breaking for her. Sometimes grown-ups have problems they can't fix, even if they want to. But no matter what, we will always love you and take care of you. The days that followed were a whirlwind of meetings with the lawyer, gathering financial documents, and making arrangements for Ava's well-being. Sophie continued to reach out, but I kept my responses brief and focused on practical matters. The pain was still too raw, and I couldn't bring myself to engage in any emotional discussions. Sophie tried to reconcile, showing up at the apartment unannounced one evening. "Daniel, please," she pleaded, her eyes red from crying. "We can work this out. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I love our family." I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Sophie, you broke my trust. You lied to me for months. How can we come back from that?" "I know," she sobbed. "I was stupid and selfish, but I want to fix this. For Ava's sake, for our sake." I shook my head, feeling the weight of my decision. "I can't do this anymore, Sophie. I've already started the divorce process. We need to move on. She cried harder, but I remained resolute. Please leave, Sophie. We need time to heal and figure out our next steps. She left reluctantly, and I closed the door behind her, leaning against it as a wave of exhaustion washed over me. The divorce process was draining, both emotionally and mentally, but I knew it was the right decision. The weeks turned into months, and the legal proceedings moved forward. Sophie and I communicated primarily through our lawyers, negotiating the terms of the settlement. I focused on protecting my assets and ensuring Ava had everything she needed. The lawyer helped me navigate the complexities, and I was grateful for his support. Despite Sophie's attempts to reconcile, I stood firm in my decision. The betrayal had left an indelible mark, and I couldn't envision a future together. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the routine and structure it provided. Ava and I developed new routines as well, creating a sense of stability in our lives. I also sought therapy to help process the emotional turmoil. The therapist was understanding and provided valuable insights, helping me navigate the labyrinth of my feelings. We discussed the stages of grief, the importance of self-care, and strategies for rebuilding my life. The sessions became a lifeline, a place where I could unpack the heavy burden of betrayal and find a path forward. As the divorce proceedings neared their conclusion, I felt a sense of closure. The pain was still there, but it was no longer a gaping wound. I could see a future beyond the heartbreak, a future where I could rebuild my life and find happiness again. One day I received a call from my lawyer. "Daniel, the divorce is finalized. Congratulations, you've made it through this difficult process." I thanked him, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. It was over. The marriage that had once been my anchor was now officially dissolved. I took a deep breath, letting the reality sink in. That evening, I took Ava to our favorite park. We sat on a bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. She leaned against me, her small hand in mine. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" I kissed the top of her head, feeling a surge of love and determination. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. We have each other, and that's what matters." With the divorce behind me, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my work, taking on new projects and challenges. The distraction helped, but I also made sure to take time for myself and for Ava. We explored new hobbies, took weekend trips, and spent quality time together. I wanted to create new memories, ones that weren't overshadowed by the past. I also reconnected with friends and family, leaning on them for support. Their unwavering presence reminded me that I wasn't alone in this journey. They helped me see that life could be full of joy and love again, even after such a profound betrayal. Through therapy, work, and the support of loved ones, I began to heal. The scars were still there, but they no longer defined me. I was determined to build a better future for myself and Ava, one where we could thrive and find happiness. Sophie faced her own consequences. She lost friends, and her relationship with Jason ended shortly after our confrontation. She tried to rebuild her life, but it was a long and painful process. We kept our interactions civil for Ava's sake, but the trust was gone, replaced by a cautious distance. As the months passed, I found a sense of peace and fulfillment in my new life. I realized that my happiness wasn't tied to my marriage or to Sophie. It came from within, from the love I had for Ava and the resilience I discovered within myself. I moved forward, step by step, building a future filled with hope and possibilities. The betrayal was a chapter in my life, but it wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new journey, one where I could find strength, joy, and a renewed sense of purpose.